From Governor's Island, in fact, on the edge of this magnificent harbor, the upper bay of New York Harbor, with the ships from the international fleet already here and waiting to pay tribute tomorrow to the Statue of Liberty. And just having arrived a few moments ago on the east side, the Brooklyn side of Governor's Channel, on the golf course for this Governor's Island Coast Guard Station, President and Mrs. Reagan, the President now receiving honors. As here in the very small, recently constructed stadium, people begin to gather for what we can assure you, having had a sneak look at the preview last night, a very exciting set of opening ceremonies as we here on the East Coast, hopefully for you all across the country, wear patriotism on our sleeve. Barbara, good evening.
Good evening. I think it's going to be a very exciting night. You will be moved, I think. You will be entertained. You will be touched. Most of all, I think we're all going to feel very, very proud. Don't you?
I think we are if we don't get blown away.
Yeah,
I must tell you, yesterday we were worried about the rain. There's something of a stiff gale blowing here this evening, which was very helpful to the tall ships as they're made their way down the East River today and then out to their berth where they're spending the night before they come up the harbor tomorrow. They tell us, Barbara, this will go down when the sun goes down, but I have my doubts.
Well, behind us is the stage, so they're going to be dancing and blowing, and it should be, as we said, interesting to watch.
And now that you mention the stage, let us give you some specific idea of exactly where we are. As Barbara said, there is the stage on which at the moment the U.S. Navy Band is playing for the crowd assembling. And it is there, of course, where the opening ceremonies will take place this evening. Just about 1,700 yards across this upper bay from the stage, you can see her, the Statue of Liberty about to be relit by President Reagan in a couple of stages in all of her new glory. And not too far from Liberty Island, just a short way across the bay, Ellis Island, the old island of tears through which so many millions of immigrants have passed on their way to life in the new world. And waiting there this evening, some 300 people, part of a group of 25,000 around the country, waiting to be sworn in as American citizens by Chief Justice Warren Burger, and that'll be part of the opening ceremonies. In effect, Ellis Island becomes a federal court just for tonight. And of course, there is the harbor, without the tall ships now, but with the International Naval Armada already berthed and ready to settle down for the night and for the long Liberty weekend. Pleasure ships from all over the place, warships from 23 nations, poised, as we said, to come under, there it is, the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which divides the upper and lower bays, so named for the first European who set eyes on this, one of the world's great harbors.
Last night, there was a dress rehearsal, and the Coast Guard, who inhabit this island, had a free, wonderful show. Well, that's not the case tonight. It will be a wonderful show, but it sure isn't free. It's costing the people here tonight $10,000 for a pair of tickets. Some of the people who are coming are as famous as the people on stage. Pierre Salinger has been mingling with the rich and famous and brings us this report. Pierre?
To get on this boat tonight and head for Governor's Island, you need two important assets. Be rich or famous, and be willing to pay $5,000 for the right to join President Reagan and French President Mitterrand at the opening ceremony of Liberty Weekend. 12 minutes later, you've arrived, and a long red carpet is spread out to welcome you. Among the first arrivals were two of tonight's special honorees.
Good to see you. How does it feel to be here? Pretty nice. Pretty. This isn't one of my regular stops, you know.
I remember when I came up this harbor as an immigrant on the Ile de France, and it's quite an exciting experience.
Great.
From there, it was a brief, sunny walk to the party. Good, how are you? Nice. Once there, an Air Force orchestra set the soft tone. The food was lavish: salmon, chicken, and roast beef. The bar is poised to serve everything from Diet Cola to fine wines. Lee Iacocca, the man who launched all this, was proud of the American contributions to make this weekend possible.
The American people came through at 277, probably going for 300 million, so in a short time, that's just spectacular, and the American public's generous.
New York Governor Mario Cuomo had deep reflections on his Italian past.
I think the more I reflect on it, the idea that we should be lucky enough to have had our parents come here and us be born here, I think it's very important that we keep the perspective on it. We're going to be rejoicing our good luck, and that's fine. we ought to remember that not everybody shares it.
But maybe the most enthusiastic participant at the party was the former Israeli, now American concert violinist, Itzhak Perlman.
My wife called me up and she says, guess what? They're giving this to you. And I said, what? You know, and eventually it became evident that it's probably the biggest honor I'll ever receive, you know. So.
But in the end, whether you were rich or famous, you ended up having to go through a tough security test before you went to tonight's celebration. Wary police dogs watched them all walk in. $1,000 may seem like a lot of money for an evening's entertainment, but tonight is very special in America's history, and the people who are here will never forget this evening when they will see the reborn Statue of Liberty lit up again. Peter?
Thank you, Pierre. Pierre Salinger here on Governor's Island. As Itzhak Perlman made an allusion to it, we'll tell you that part of the opening ceremonies this evening will be devoted to the presentation of the Liberty Medal by President Reagan to 12 naturalized Americans, and Itzhak Perlman will indeed be one of them. There we look now down at the stage for the opening ceremonies. People gathering now very quickly with President Reagan on the island. We're not too far from the beginning of what surely is going to be one of the great entertainment, and certainly moving, and as Pierre Salinger suggested, historic shows. We are here to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Statue of Liberty. President Mitterrand will be coming along shortly, so will Mikhail Baryshnikov and the others. We'll be back.
ABC's presentation of Liberty Weekend is brought to you by the Van Heusen Company, Avon in celebration.
The sun is just clinging to the horizon now, and there from high on the pylons of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which links Brooklyn with Staten Island in New York Harbor, the view of Lower Manhattan, Governor's Island, and a portion of the Armada, which has gathered all across this harbor and up and down the Hudson River to begin the celebrations of Liberty Weekend. We hope that in the next few days, you across the country, those of you more landlocked than we are at the moment, will feel as much affection towards this harbor and its place in American history as we have in the last few visits we've paid in preparation for this evening. Barbara?
As Pierre pointed out, Peter, there are a lot of celebrities here tonight watching the show and in the show. One of them is Gregory Peck. He will be the first host, and he will introduce President Mitterrand. I talked with him a few moments ago as he was getting ready. Mr. Peck, does the Statue of Liberty have special meaning to you?
It does. I think it's quite a typical story, but mine is about my grandmother, who was a bold young Irish girl from a poor farm in County Kerry in the south of Ireland. And she came over steerage in 1886, not long after the statue was first dedicated. And when I was a very small boy, I liked to hear her tell that story of how they arrived in New York Harbor, and all the steerage passengers were allowed on the upper deck. And she told me how they cheered, cried, waved, danced, all the emotions. And I used to like to hear her tell that story when I was a kid. So there's that personal meaning for me, yeah.
That was your maternal grandmother?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Was your father also from Ireland?
No, he was born in Rochester, New York. And he liked to play a joke on gas station attendants. Now, I had the same name as my father, Gregory Peck, or he had the same name as I. So he'd fill up his car with gas, and he'd hand over his card. Now, this one, he was a white-haired gentleman, bushy black eyebrows, about 76, 77 years old. He'd hand him the card that said Gregory Peck. And they'd look inside the car, and they'd say, "You're Gregory Peck?" He'd say, "Ah, yes, but you see, I've not been at all well lately." And he loved to do that. He was full of jokes. He was a real Irishman.
Mr. Peck, there's been some criticism that the ceremonies tonight might be too much glitz or too commercial and maybe not solemn enough for the occasion.
Well, glitzy, I don't know, but I'm certainly glad it's not going to be solemn. I don't think any of us are going to forget what that great lady means over there. And none of us forget the words of Emma Lazarus. But this is the American way. When we have political inventions, we wear crazy hats. When we have entertainment between the halves of a football game, we have girls dancing We have sex appeal, we have clowning about, we have marching bands. We have a good time about it. So it's a significant day and a great day, the 100th anniversary of the great lady there. But we're going to have fun in our own American way, and a little hullabaloo and a little glitz and a little horn blowing doesn't do any harm, I don't think.
Well, we'll be looking forward to seeing you later, very shortly, as you introduce President Mitterrand. Good luck tonight.
Thank you, Barbara.
Boy, Gregory Peck puts his fingers on so many things. There's nowhere else in the world, I suspect, where this kind of celebration, which has such deep and profound meaning, is going to have as much hoopla attached to it. Some call it glitz, some call it glitter. We certainly hope, whether you're at home or coming to the neighborhood, that it's going to be fun. Let's talk for a moment about that other famous island, Liberty Island, which used to be Bedloe's Island, where the statue now stands, is, of course, the absolute epicenter of this particular harbor. But over there, of course, is Ellis Island, through which 40% of Americans today had their ancestors come. What a connection to one small island, sometimes called the Tears, the Isle of Tears. The bulk of the Russian immigrants to this country came here between 1880 and 1920. And tonight, when approximately 300 people are sworn in publicly on television all across the country from Ellis Island, one clearly of the most visible will be a Russian dancer and choreographer named Mikhail Baryshnikov. And later this evening, he'll dance for us. First, here's Stone Phillips.
An immigrant flees an oppressive government to find freedom in America, becomes a movie star, a darling of society, a manager and entrepreneur. A turn-of-the-century tale? No, a success story of the 80s. The story of Mikhail Baryshnikov. Born in Latvia in the Soviet Union in 1948, as a teenager, he entered Leningrad's famed Kirov Ballet Company and was instantly acclaimed when he made his first solo performance in 1962. In 1970, he began performing in the West. 4 years later, he made a momentous decision.
And I didn't plan my defection in 1974. It was just a necessity, an urge. And it was a one-day decision.
Defecting to the West in Toronto that day in 1974 was not, he maintains, a political act, but a search for artistic freedom. For Baryshnikov, ballet was only a launching pad. Dancing on film, the turning point, his screen debut in 1977 earned him an Oscar nomination. He greeted presidents and paid tribute to some of his American idols.
I have been invited to say something about how dancers feel about Fred Astaire. It's no secret, we hate him.
That's life. That's life. That's what all the people say.
And before long, Mikhail Baryshnikov had become not just a beloved ballet dancer, but a media superstar, with television specials that were more showbiz than Swan Lake, and an acquired poise at handling the ever-present press. His latest film, White Nights, was a critical and box office success, showcasing Baryshnikov as one of show business's hottest properties. He's even branched out into hot properties of his own, part ownership in a restaurant on Manhattan's trendy Upper West Side.
I'm definitely American now. I'm pretty fast, I'm pretty cynical, but I love it.
But not too cynical. The ballet dancer who came here looking for artistic freedom 12 years ago is today artistic director of the American Ballet Theater.
Well, here tonight on Ellis Island, as you can see, the speeches are just about to begin, and with the actual swearing-in ceremony just about an hour away, there's a tremendous feeling of anticipation here. As Peter said earlier, what's actually happening is that Ellis Island tonight becomes a federal court so that these immigrants can become full-fledged Americans, among them, of course, Baryshnikov. But he's really only one of 300 here on Ellis Island and one of several thousand across the country who will take the oath of citizenship tonight. This group includes 2 petitioners from every state and the District of Columbia and every U.S. territory. They were handpicked by their respective governors. And to look at them is to see an incredible mosaic of different cultural and religious backgrounds. Finally, what you're really going to see here tonight, amidst all of the hoopla and fanfare of Liberty Weekend, is a simple and solemn ceremony. Chief Justice Berger will take to the stage. He'll ask the petitioners to raise their right hands, renounce loyalty to any foreign government, and pledge their allegiance to the United States. And with that, their common aspirations of citizenship here will come true. One final note, Peter. Before they took their seats here, the petitioners were treated to an all-American snack. You can almost guess what was on the menu. It was Coca-Cola and a slice of apple pie.
Thanks very much, Stone. Simple, but certainly not private. As you know, that ceremony is going to be part of the opening ceremonies, and we must tell you that a couple of judges, one in Los Angeles and one in Washington, didn't want to participate today because they thought that all of the hoopla attached to the swearing in of new immigrants to become new citizens in a glare of publicity would just simply not make it a dignified occasion. But there is that picture there, Barbara, of that man sitting holding the Statue of Liberty in his lap. I don't think there could be anything more dignified than that.
And every time we look at that Statue of Liberty, there it is behind us. What a beautiful sight. We're going to come back and talk more about that and tell you more about what you're going to be seeing tonight. We will be back in just a moment.